All right, welcome back. We are COMP1116. That's Game Programming 3 in the fall 2025 semester at Georgian, and it's week 6, part 2 of our broadcast and recording together. And in this part, the last part, what we did was we talked about last week's homework. We also talked about mid-semester tests. But now what I want to do is I want to do some improvements. So this is new stuff for today, and this is part of your in-class exercise 6. Let's do it. So I want to be able to do auto fire. Some people did it by accident when they made their stuff in the first place, right? So inside of my FPS character blueprint, right? What it's basically saying is we're going to collapse the fire into a fire equipped weapon function. So again, IA fire, that's in the event graph. So if we look here, that's all of this, right? So it basically tells us to collapse this into a function that looks like that. So I'm going to do that. Check if we see if we have ammo. All that stuff is right here. So, and we're going to call that fire equipped weapon. So that's the way to do this. So again, we'll grab all this and right click, and we're going to collapse to function. And we're going to call this fire equipped weapon. There it is. That's that function. Now, notice that in the PowerPoint, it looks like it's disconnected. We want to disconnect this. That's the function. We just want to make that function first, okay? And once we've created that thing, there's basically, I want to make two functions. I want to make, we want to start firing and stop firing. That's what I want to be able to do, right? We don't have those two functions yet, but we're going to make those two functions, right? So that's where I'm going to put everything in here. Also, has ammo, you know, as an example, set HUD ammo and set HUD health, fire equipped weapon, all those things. So this is combat. This is combat. Health and that kind of stuff is probably UI. So I'm going to make a brand new thing that we'll call this UI functions, UI functions, right? So we'll kind of put that inside of UI functions just to make sure that that is good, right? So combat and UI functions, and we've separated those out. Okay, so now we need two variables, can fire and fire rate, right? So can fire is, okay, can fire is Boolean, and fire rate is a float. This is how often we fire. Fire rate is a float. And let's set them up. One thing that we have to be careful of here is can fire has to be set to true and fire rate has to be set to 0.12 or something like it, right? So again, can fire, compile and save. You have to do that first before you set it to true. I can fire at the beginning, right? Fire rate, we set that to 0.12. Compile and save again, right? Let's set these up. So this one, can fire, is definitely a combat variable, and so is fire rate. That is a combat variable. And then, you know, FPS HUD is a HUD variable, so we'll add that in. Oops, I meant to do this, so maybe HUD. Actually, I'll put UI functions, but I'll kind of rename that whole functions thing to HUD. There we go. So HUD, and this one will be, again, UI functions will make this HUD. So it's all the same, you know what I'm saying? As opposed to two different things. There we go. And then UI, when I do that, then the category is still there. We're just not using it. All right, so compile and save. We've got those things. We've added the two variables here. And then the next part is make two functions, start firing and stop firing. So start firing, make a new function. Again, I'm in the player to do this. So start firing, definitely a combat function, right? And when I start firing, I want attributes ammo, see if I have enough. Attributes get ammo. There we go. And if you're already ahead of me because you've accessed the PowerPoint, that's great. Just watch, and then maybe I've done something different than you. Then we want to say the can fire variable, can fire. So two things I'm testing here. Is my ammo greater than 0 and can I fire? If it's true, I have to have an and boolean. If both those things are true, right, then I want a branch, right? So I have enough ammo and I can fire. That's what this means, right? So I can do these things. Then I want to fire my equipped weapon. So this is where I'm doing it, right? And I want to set timer by function name. So set timer by function name, and I'm going to call this fire equipped weapon. Fire equipped weapon, if I'm not wrong, right? And fire equipped weapon is something that I want to do, and I want to make it looping by fire rate. So how does this work? So fire rate basically is how often I repeat this action, this timer, right? So I'm going to keep firing my weapon. I'm going to keep doing whatever I have in here, which means, play the muzzle flash, play the weapon sound, perform the line trace. All that stuff is going to be done in a timer this time, as opposed to, using my button to press it. I'm going to hold my button this time. When I hold my button, it's going to keep playing that thing. When I stop holding the button, it's going to stop firing. Okay, that's the idea behind this thing. So that's what start firing is going to be. That's the start firing function, and that's right from your PowerPoint. That's right from here. Stop firing is the opposite. So I'm going to make a new function, and we're going to call this stop firing. Stop firing. And stop firing, again, is a combat function. There he is. And then stop firing is just going to clear function timer by function name. So clear function timer by function name. There it is. And we're going to call this function name fire equipped weapon. Same function that we had before. So it's going to clear the timer. And so what this is going to do is it's going to stop us from repeating that over and over again. So again, fire equipped weapon, it's going to do this over and over again. But when we stop firing, it's going to clear the timer and it won't allow me to fire again, right? All right, so that is the start and stop firing functions. How do I use them? I can use update the IA fire event like this. So let's try this. So go back to the event graph, and it was blank now, but we can say start firing, right? And stop firing. So when do we do these things? Well, if I just click started, that means that once I start the thing happening, then it's going to continue to fire, right? And if I'm completed, this is when I can stop firing. This is kind of like jumping and not jumping, kind of thing. But in this case, as long as I keep the weapon, my button pressed down, as an example, then it's not going to go to stop firing, which means it's going to keep looping that timer, right? I don't want to put it on triggered. Triggered will do something very bad. It'll make it go boom, weird things, right? And it'll make that timer over and over again. Because triggered already waits for you to hold down the button, and that's not the way to go, right? So if I press play now, and if I did everything right, then I can fire the weapon, auto fire, right? When I stop pressing the weapon, it stops firing, right? So again, it's easier for me to kill my drones, and also way easier for me to run out of ammo, right? So that's what I've done there. So that is the auto fire, right? So let's put that up on, so file, save all. And we'll go back to here, and we'll say get adapt, get commit -m, we'll say added auto fire to player, right? Okay, so now that we've added that, we want to do the next part, which is drone improvements. So one of the things that we can do with the drone is right now what happens is when the drone sees us, it kind of snaps itself to us. So if you actually look and see what's going on, which is kind of an ugly way of making the drone work. If I go in here, then it kind of, as soon as it sees me, or even its own, even when it's like patrolling, see how it snaps to the next patrol point? It's not great. It'd be nice if he kind of smoothly kind of like change facing a little bit, which is more realistic than snapping. Snapping doesn't make sense. Like that means like it's almost like less realistic. Like doesn't look right. So I want to make a new function called rotate towards goal, right? And let's do that. So rotate towards goal. and that's for the drone itself. So that's inside of the BP drone, right? It's a new function. And we're going to make this a combat function again because it's rotating towards a goal, right? And with an input parameter of delta time, right? So delta time is an input parameter of type float. There we go. Okay, there's my input parameter. And what I want to do is I want to get the goal actor, but notice the goal actor is a validated get. This is new. So how do I do that? So get the goal actor. So the goal actor is down here. So if I just get, it looks like this. But I can also do a validated get. So if I right click, I can convert this to a validated get. Yeah, this is important new stuff, guys, so please pay attention. A validated get is like saying, does the goal actor exist? In code, it's like if goal actor is not equal to null pointer, right? That's what that is. So validated gets are really great because they can test to see if something exists before you try and do something on that thing, right? So, okay, so if the goal actor exists, that's the first thing. So if the goal actor exists, then I want to get the actor location. So get actor location. That's what this is. And then I also want to get the actual location for the drone. So get actor location. Don't be fooled. These are not the same. Even though this says get actor location, and so does this one. This one is for the goal actor. That's for the checkpoint, the patrol point, or for the player, right? That could be one or the other. And this one is the actor location of the drone. So those two things. Okay, so now that we have those two things, we want to kind of find the look at rotation. So we can say find look at rotation by having the start and the target. So what we're saying is start with where the actor is, the drone, where the drone is looking, right? And where is the target? What's that going to be looking at? What are they looking? What are they supposed to be looking at? That is the rotation. And if you notice what it returns is a rotator. A rotator is a quaternion. Okay, that's what it is, right? So this is what this is. And then once you've got that, then what you want to do is you want to get the actor rotation. That's for the drone again. Get actor rotation. There it is. And notice that's also a rotator. Okay, so two rotators here. And then what we want to do is r interp 2. So if we type that in, r interp 2, right? R interp 2 is rotate interpolate 2. That's what it does. And so it's going to interpolate means it's going to go from here to here in a smooth motion, right? So we're going to say from here to there. That's our where we want to look, right? So this is where we are looking right now. This is where we are looking, and this is where we want to look, right? And that is our we're interpolating from one to the other. Interpolating means we're going to go from, if on a number line, we're going to go to 0 to 1, where 0 is closer to the original target and 1 is where we want to go. And then there's a number line where each point, 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, represents percentages of how we want to move, right? So then we want a delta time, which is coming in from our function, right? So get delta time, this one, right? And connect that in. So that's going to give us our, it's going to move, kind of the angle every frame. That's what this is going to do. Every frame, it's going to move the angle. And then what's the speed? We want to wait for about 5 seconds. If I kind of hover over there, it tells you interp speed. So the speed given is 0, and then if the speed given is 0, it's going to jump to that from 0 to 1, which is kind of what we have now. So we want to give a number in here. So let's put in 5, right? So that number is how long it takes for us to go from one target to the other, nice and smooth, right? And then what we want to do at the end is set the actor rotation. So set actor rotation for the drone, so that the drone will rotate, kind of based on the interpolation of the interpolated value as opposed to the kind of like just snapping to the next point. The reason why we snap to the next point is because we're using a nav mesh. The nav mesh is basically maneuvering the drone, right? And changing the location based on the target, right? So the navigation mesh is using a pathfinding algorithm to go from start to goal. and then it's going to change the look rotation of the drone immediately when it goes to the next drone. It doesn't do it smoothly, right? This will change it, will modify that behavior so that it rotates towards the goal smoother, right? Compile and save. Next, now that we have that, we want to add this thing every tick. So we're going to go back to the event graph, and on the event tick, which we don't have, notice there is no event tick, we've removed it. I'm going to put it in. So I'm going to say event tick. If it did exist, by the way, it would take me there. And then I want to take these delta seconds and rotate towards the goal. So let's try this, rotate towards the goal, right? And notice that delta time is connected, compile and save. And let's test it out by, let's see what it does when it just patrols. You should see a difference now in patrolling. So again, if I was to go, notice that it kind of switches around, right? So it kind of moves around there. And then when it gets to the next patrol point, it kind of smoothly turns. Notice that smooth turn now? Take a look at this. And if it's same thing with me, if it finds me, then it's going to smoothly turn as opposed to the way it is, right? So it kind of moves around, you know, and that kind of stuff. All right, so that's really what this does. And that allows me to smoothly rotate the drone. So that's the first thing. So back to this, get a dot, get commit -m, we'll say added a rotate, interpolated rotation for drone. All right, so that's that part. Are we good so far? Hopefully you guys are good. Next part is if I shoot the drone. I mean, you know, this is the thing. It should aggro. It should be aggravated and get aggressive towards me, right? How do we do that? Well, we can do this in the perform line trace function. So in the perform line trace, so that is here's the combat functions, right? For this is the drone. Let's go back to the character. So perform line trace. You notice that we have these things right here, and at the end, after we break the hit result, we're going to add a sequence in here again. So again, I know you guys are probably tired about this whole sequence thing. Like, why is he always using sequences? It's just a better way of breaking things up a little bit. You know, there's realistically, I could have broke this out into a number of sequences. I'm not doing that here. I'm just doing it right here, right? So there's two, right? I want to cast the drone. So this thing here, this damaged actor, right? Instead of going directly to my apply damage, I want to cast to BP underscore drone, right? So that's what I want to do. So cast to, I'll do it down here, BP underscore drone. That's the damage actor. So if I'm hitting a drone, is basically what this is saying. I'm going to kind of move things around a little bit just to make sure I have more room. Way over here. So if I can cast to the drone, if that's true, right, and if it's successful, then what do I want to do next? Well, I want to save the thing or promote this as BP drone to damage drone. That's what I want, right? So again, I want to promote the variable. I want to call this damaged drone. There it is, right? So that's the next thing I want to do. And then after I do that, that's what I want to do to apply the damage. So I want to take this damage actor, uncheck it, right? And I want to use the damage drone here. Now we could, I could also call get damage drone and do that, but notice that damage drone is now a variable. I'm going to put this on as a combat thing that is part of the whole class, right? So we know which drone was damaged, basically. We keep track of the damaged drone, right? Whatever that damaged drone is. Then attributes, target, damage, self, all that stuff stay the same, right? As an example. And then what I've done here is this return node is what I'm moving to the next, the impact point. So impact point and return node, I want to kind of separate this a little bit. So kind of put this afterwards. Okay, it's just to show you. So what I'm doing is I'm saying, hey, don't return the impact point here. I don't need both of these two reroute nodes. But let's say this one here is return impact point either way. So that's what this is. earn impact point. That's what we're doing there. I don't need this extra other one, so we can get rid of it just to make it nice. So here's impact point. There we go. And okay, I'm just going to put that over here. And this part here, cast to set, blah, 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 blah. This is all the way here to this point is where we have. Now, we want to get a validated get to the damaged drone, right? Can we get it, right? So again, I'm going to get a get, and I'm going to convert this to a validated get, right? So get validated get. Does the drone still exist? Yes or no? Like, is it blown up yet, as an example? And then if it's valid, then what I want to do is players detected. So damaged drone, and then we can say player detected, right? Because if the player is detected, it's going to change the goal from whatever it's looking at toward the player. All right, that's what it's going to do. And we want to pass in a reference to self here. So self, which is the reference to self, and that is the thing, that is the player that it's looking for. If we had a multiplayer game, then it would only go for the player that hit it, not some other player. All right, so that is the new stuff that I put in. And again, this is apply damage only if drone is hit. That's what this part is, up to here. So apply damage only if drone is hit. That's good. But what I also want to do here, okay, here's this and this, just to keep this on the level, is this part, which is, you know, basically come after the player, change the player to the target, change the goal to the player when the player shoots the drone. So that's what this is. So change goal actor to player. That's what this is, right? So basically, as soon as I hit the drone with a bullet, it should start coming after me, which is a way better, mechanic than what we've had so far. I can shoot the drone as many times as I want, and it won't even know what will do anything, right? Which is kind of a bad thing. All right, let's try this out. Compile and save and test, and let's see if we can do that. So again, I can test this by just literally just firing at this drone right here, and now it's just come at me, right? Oh, what happened? What happened? How come it didn't come at me? So I kind of destroyed it. Let's try it again. So I kind of, it's there, and then, it's going to come at me, right? But it did something different, earlier. Let's see what it does here. So if I kind of hit it, right, it comes at me, and if it hasn't detected me yet, take a look, right? Will it continue to come at me? Sometimes if it detects the target first, then it'll go towards the target instead. So it's not perfect, but it's better than what we had before. So it'll start coming at me. Where do I get the goal is valid? You use a validated get. So again, you just drag and drop, the damaged drone, right? And that's how you know the goal is still valid, or the drone is still valid, because the validated get basically checks to see if it's null pointer. Does the drone still exist? A good example of this is like if I blow up the drone somehow, if I shoot at it, right, then it's not going to chase me anymore, right? If I destroy it, it's not going to continue to chase me. Let's try this out. So an example would be, I don't want to cause an error, is what I'm saying. So if I fire at the drone, right, and if I exit the game, I don't want to see an error that says null pointer, because I've killed the drone already, and then I'm telling it at the same time to come after me after I've shot it, right? So I'm only going to allow that to happen if and only if the drone still exists. Like if the drone's still in play. Like if I haven't killed the drone with my shots. Right. So that's what this one is. All right, drone lights. This is kind of cool. I kind of already prepared this for you. So typically what happens is the drone mesh itself, if you actually look at the drone, has here's the mesh. It has a series of materials. Okay, here's the materials for the drones. We have like, drone bomb 1, drone bomb 2, and so on, right? Well, what you can do is, if I actually search, notice here it says use selected asset. There's another one that says browse to the material. So again, I'm clicking on the mesh of the drone to get here, and I'm going to, browse to the material. So there I'm browsing to the material. Here it is. And you may already have this, in your material. But what I want to do is I want to create a new material for my drone. If you don't already have this, it's okay. But if you do somehow, that's all right too. So here's my material. So what I can do is I can right click on my material, any material, by the way, even the ones you might create. And if I go to create material instance, right, I can rename this to mi_drone, mi_drone. And if I double click inside there, the material instance itself will have a series of parameters that the material might have exposed. So a good example of this, if I go back to the material, let's go back there. If I look at the material, there's a huge material node, right? Here's a node map for the material. My friends, this is insane. These material nodes sometimes go out of control, right? But what happens is you have some of these variables here, these parameters like plastic roughness and a bunch of other stuff here. And you can see that all of these things, and I didn't create this material, someone else did clearly. But basically what it does is it creates all these variables that they expose, for you. So if you create a material instance, as an example, you can get things like the color and that kind of stuff out of the material instance. So this is the material, kind of complex, but if we look at the material instance, it has a bunch of parameter groups. And if you open up some of these, right, you can see that the global static parameters, is a global vector parameter values. This is the one you want, the last one. If you open it up, there is a team color parameter, If we check on that, you can see that the team color right now is blue, right? If I check on it, right? So team color is definitely what I want to expose. So it's going to glow like this. You can also change the color to whatever you want. If you want it more dark or whatever you want to make it. And sometimes this is a great thing that you can do. It will highlight your material, in this particular case. All right, so if I go back to just try it out, let's see what I get if I just do that. Just click on the material. Well, right now, nothing, right? Because I'm not using the material. I've got to go in here and I got to change these, right? So we can use that. And the first one, the element 0 of the mesh is enough. So if I kind of pull down and if I type in mi_drone and I use that material, there it is, right? And if I compile and save and file, save all, as I do this, right? My dog is going crazy upstairs. And if I press play, let's see what it does now. So all the drones are going to have this other material. And what they do is they kind of glow, right? They kind of have this glowy material, right? You can see that that is the case. Here it is, glowy, glowy material, right? And what I want is I want this material that's glowing now to change to red when it's aggroed, right? So how do we do that? So what I want to do, I've already done this. I've already added the thing. Here's the team color. You can change the team color to whatever you want, right? But what I want to do is, and I did this already as well. What I want to do is I want to be able to change the player detected method, a function, so that way I can change the team color to red when the player is detected. All right. So again, I'm going back to the drone. So I'm going back to the drone. And I'm going to go to the player detected function. Here's the player detected function. So far, I have this like weird node that says like character detected. We don't need that anymore. That's just our debug. And by the way, if you have any debug lines from your line tracing, turn those off now. We don't need those anymore. I know some of you still keep those on. So player detected is going to have a couple of sequence nodes here, right? Here's the player detected, right? So player detected is going to have, let's just like we have right now, we have this goal actor, right? And that's up here. Character is the goal actor. That's what we have, right? Well, character, let's separate this. We'll say get character. Ow. Get character, this one, right? And what we're going to do is we're just going to kind of connect those up. That's kind of like putting the line in there. That's what that's doing. So that's what this is. And I want to get the patrol timer. So here's the patrol timer, get. And I want to clear and invalidate timer by handle. I want to do that part. I'm just setting this up just like the PowerPoint. That's this part right here, right? And we want to inject that in the middle, or insert that in the middle, I would say, something like this. And that is the first line. Let's add a sequence to this, just like we do in the PowerPoint sequence. Here it is. And I'll add a little reroute node here. All right. And this part right here is this part. If the player is detected, stop the timer and change the cool actor to FPS character. Right. So if player is detected, stop timer and change goal actor to player. That's what we want. All right. Go. Nice, nice, nice. And put this over here. And the second sequence that we're going to do is we're going to move to target, right? So move to the player. So we're going to say that that's move to target. There we go. Move to target. That is the second thing we're going to do. So this is going to be like move to the player. Okay, so see, move to the player. Go. This is if, again, we're changing the player detected. What happens when the player is detected? Move to the player. And this is going to stop that issue. Remember when I shot the drone, and for a second it went to me, and then it was closer to its target, its original target, and it kept going to that as opposed to me. That can happen. But if we did this, we invalidate the timer, because the timer goes on and basically goes go to the next target, the next target, the next target, right? And we want to clear and validate that timer and just move to the player. So this is going to force the drone to move to the player when I aggro it. All right, as an example. And then the next one is when I change the drone material color. All right, so again, I want to get a reference to the mesh. Here it is. And I want to say set vector parameter value on materials. So set vector parameter on materials. There it is. And then here it is, like this. And which material is this going to ask me? So which material and which parameter? Well, it's the team color. Make sure you spell it properly, the American way, team color. And the parameter is, even though it's XYZ, it's representing RGB in this case. So red is the X. We're going to change that to red. All right, so this is going to change the drone material color. So change drone material color. That's what this does. So once it's aggroed, it's going to stay red forever until you destroy it. And it's going to keep chasing you forever too, until you destroy it. Okay? So that's what this does. We can clean this up a little bit, make it a little nicer, move things around so that to make them look a little bit better. There we go. And compile and save. Let's try this out and see if it works. Right? So we're going to do that next. All right. So we're here and we're going to shoot the drone, and it's aggroed, and you can see it turned red, and it's going to keep going to fight us until it does that. Right? So shooting definitely does it. Right? Right? And what about if I come into range? Does it also do that way? Like if I come into the drone's range, does it also aggro? It does, right? So it kind of detects me and comes at me, which is pretty cool. All right, so that is drone improvements done. I'm just going to go down to here and say git dot git commit -m, and we'll say added aggro. we'll say aggro drone when player detected. That's what that is, right? And git push, which kind of changes it adds a material instance. That's what that MI is, material instance, as we push it up. All right, now stuff for you to do. All right, this is what I want you to do for your in-class exercise, and this is where you need a little bit of patience. I'm going to do some of this with you because we're together still, and we still have about 17 minutes. So this is just extra bonus for you. So I'm going to do it with you anyway. Cleaning up the game. How do we do that? I want to take away all the sphere radii and all that kind of stuff from the drone, the patrol point, the base pickup, all that stuff. So there's none of that visible anymore, right? Let's do that first. So going back to this, I'm going to go back to the drone, right? And let's go back to the actual drone, not to the blueprint, I mean. So drone, BP underscore drone. And then we're going to go to the explode radius and the sensing radius. And I'm just going to type in hidden. And we want definitely for those to be hidden in game. So this we're cleaning up the game, making our first, kind of our second playable, if you will. Compile and save. All right, so no more of that. We're not going to see that anymore. Same thing with the patrol point. I don't want to see the patrol point at all. I don't want to see the patrol point mesh. So that's going to be hidden in game, right? Here it is. So hidden in game. I don't want to see it. And I also don't want to see the patrol point radius, hidden in game. All right, so I want to not see those two things. So compile and save and test. Let's see if that takes care of most of that. So now we don't see any of those things, right? And we definitely don't want to see the pickups or anything like that. So it should look like this, where there's really no, we don't see any like radii or anything like that. It's kind of gone. Okay, so that's the first thing. So that's the first thing we did. Okay, so I did all that stuff. Let's do that now and put that up on DevOps. So save all, make sure you do that. And then go here and we're going to say git add dot, git commits minus m, and we'll say cleaned up radii and debug lines. And for you guys, if you guys, again, have that shooting debug line turned on at this point on the line trace, perform line trace, turn it off. Okay, we don't need that anymore. Okay, so that's that gone. All right, so that's the next one. And then, all right, how do I add a way to quit? Well, I need a new way of doing that, which is another input. So again, under input, I want to go to actions and I want to go to input action and call this IA quit. Now, remember that even though we can quit with escape, it doesn't mean that you can do that when you build your game. So we're going to do that so that you can do this when you're building your game. So here's this. I'm going to go back to my input mapping context, and I'm going to add a new mapping context for the quit, which is this one. And then I want to quit when I press the escape key. So I just change that to escape, save. It's only a Boolean, you know, as an example. And again, I want to file, save all. Okay. Let's clear some of these things. I got a lot going on here at the top here, right? But for the character, I also have quite a few functions open, right? Let's just look at the event graph. And what I want to do is I want to add a new event, IA quit. Here it is. Here's the quit, right? And what I want to do here is I want to get the controller, right? So get controller. And I want to cast to player controller, right? So the player controller itself. And notice it says when it's triggered. And then what I want to do is I want to quit game. So that's the thing. So if I do quit game, that's a built-in function. I don't have to define that. So it'll do function quit. It's asking me for a specific player. I want to pass in the player controller there. That's important to do. It's going to do a quit. And I also want to ignore platform restrictions. For example, if it was on an Xbox or if it was on an Android device or whatever, then it would not quit. It would put it to the background when you're in a mobile device. Here, I'm going to make sure that it quits no matter what. It's going to just quit the game, right? So compile and save, all right? So that's what we're going to put there. That's the next piece that we're going to have, okay? We can't test it yet until we build, and this is the part that's going to take a long time to do, all right? And that's why I can't sit with you. This might take, I don't know, 20 minutes or so for it to happen or more. But I'm going to explain how you can prep for this, all right? And what you can do. So first thing is we need to do some prepping. And the first thing you want to do is something called updating your redirector references. Let's go and do that. So the way to do this, the most efficient way I found, is if you go to your content folder, that's here on the left, right? And if you right click, and then if you click on update redirector references, this is important, right? It's going to bring up a bunch of stuff that's here that is basically, they've been moved. All these references for the game mode, we move things around, right? And what this is doing is it's keeping these connections, these like links, you know, as an example. Now, warning, this is going to mess some things up. We're going to have to fix in a second, all right? But I want to delete these or else your game will never build. Never. It's never going to build. It's going to say, I don't know, this is pointing to this, something is wrong. So let's click delete unreferenced redirectors. Let's do that. So click that. Okay, once we've done that, unreferenced redirectors, you don't have to do it anywhere else. Like if you go to blueprints and try that again, there's nothing to do there. Or if you go to like, the character and do that again, like, we can click that a bunch of places, but really if you just do it from the content, it does all of them, which is pretty cool, all right? Next, the next thing to check, make sure after you've done that, that you want to check to see that in your project settings, if I go to project settings, right, make sure that in maps and modes, so I pull this up so you can see it now, that the default game mode is not none. So when I updated my redirector references, the game mode was wiped out. Let's see what happens if I play the game now. If I play the game, well, some things are broken. Like, for example, I got no player and I got my default pawn and I can fly up into the sky. Woohoo! Right? Because, well, there is no game mode. I haven't added a game mode in. It's not the default game mode is what's happening here. Actually, it's none, which means there is no game mode. There's no player. There's nothing, right? So I need to select that again. I need to go to here and BP_FPS game mode. I can select that. And again, it's important for you to do that because we've just changed all our redirector references and play the game again to make sure it works. This is where it should be working. Okay, so all the same stuff. You should test your game out a little bit. Make sure that it's all working the same way, right? That it still aggroes, the drone still chases you, all this kind of stuff, okay? All that stuff is important to test because that's the next part, all right? So we've changed this part. Next, it says the next part to prepare is the virtual texture support. Now, this is where you have to restart your Unreal Engine, and it may take some time. But I want to go to project settings again, so edit, project settings, and I want to go to where it says, if I just search here for virtual textures, right? So notice that virtual textures is not enabled. We want to enable this because we have a lot of nanite, all those messages I kept on getting for nanite this and nanite that. I want to click on virtual textures. Now, when I do that, it says, hey, you need to restart your Unreal Engine for this to happen. I'm going to do that here, but I'm not going to do that. It says where it says restart later. I'm okay with that, but I'm going to go here and save all first. That's an important thing to do, and then restart, okay? Restarting, what it's going to do is it's going to bring up Unreal Engine again. Notice that it starts doing this, right? And it's also potentially going to start redoing all the shaders. Like I noticed when I did this the first time and I restarted it, it did all the shader stuff again. It might do it for you. Like you might see it's just counting down all the shader updates again because it's redoing all the shaders for, for your new virtual textures, right? So again, it's important after you do that, you test the game out again and make sure that, again, you don't get any of those weird issues, right? So, and now you can still do stuff, but now textures are supported. Okay, and it's pretty good. All right. So that's the next part. So enable virtual texture support. Okay, now this is where it gets hairy, and I want to refer you to the manual. I know we're running out of time here, but just bear with me. The manual basically says this, all right? When you're building, right, then make sure you have your default map set to the right thing. And it gives you some warnings. It basically says, hey, make sure you do some stuff. Like maps and modes should point to the map that you're going to run. So there's two maps, right? One in editor, the one we want to start when the editor starts. This could be our test map. And then two, what's the game default map? Your level 1 or level 0. Where do you start in the game? These two could be different. I could be testing a level here in editor, but I can actually want a level to start in the game. So this is what this is right here, okay? So that's what it's basically telling you to do. And if you look through this, it says creating packages, package the project, right? So if I go back to packaging the project, let's do that together, right? And again, this is going to take a while. So we're going to stop the recording here in a second. But I want to talk about this. Let's turn off everything. So only the editor is open. File, save all, right? And let's put this up on DevOps because we're ready, almost at the level we're ready to package the project. If anything fails, and this is really important, guys, you want to be able to recover it. And so this is the state where we want to be able to do this. If you don't make a commit here, anything goes wrong, like your packet, like your project blows up, you're done. Imagine if this is your game that you're doing with your team. This is a bad bad result, right? You don't want that. So here, I'm just gonna have saved all, git add dot, git commit minus m, and we'll say getting ready to package the game. Okay, so we know what that is. Notice that there's some stuff that changed, some other things there, and then git push. So I want to be able to do this because these are all the things that have changed, right? And there's some changes that have happened, and I want to record those changes to the map, to the game mode, to all that stuff. That's why we saved all. Okay. Next, platforms. This is where you're going to go. This little button right here. Under platforms, you can see there's a number of platforms that your stuff should support. One of them is Windows. Now, Windows traditionally is the fastest platform to build for. I want you to practice shipping the game, okay? Not debug the game or development, right? As an example, this is the project settings in development. That means like it'll build, but it won't really build at all. You want to be able to kind of do shipping, the shipping build itself, right? As an example. And that's the one you want. So you just select shipping, okay? And then you go back in here and go Windows, and you want to click on Package Project. Now this is going to take a long time. It took me, last time I did this, more than 20 minutes. And the first time it failed. It may fail for you, right? But what I want you to do is click Package the Project. It's going to ask you where to put it. I want to make a new folder. I'm going to call this one, in this case, it's different than the PowerPoint. I'm going to call this Build, the Build folder. And inside there, I want to kind of double click inside there and click Select Folder. All right, so the Build folder. Click Select Folder. This is going to take time. It's going to make this little sound, and I'm just going to move back to, I'm not going to optimize for video anymore. So I'm going to move back to regular settings. There we go. And I want to do this so that way, so this is what's happening. Now, if you want to keep track of this and you're interested in what's going on, you can see that there are several steps to the packaging. And your steps might be different than my steps because I've got a different computer than you, right? But you can see that it's taking its sweet time, right? And doing this kind of stuff. So now I also want you to know the following. Right now, what I'm doing is I'm broadcasting on YouTube, and I'm also on Zoom. So this is all resources. These are all resources that my computer desperately needs right now for the packaging, part. It's going to take its time, like I said, and this will take a long time for it to do. Usually many, many minutes. This is the part that I think where when I compare Unreal Engine to Unity, and if I was ever going to think about an improvement to Unreal Engine, I wish there was some way of packaging the projects and making it just overall faster than what it is right now. I know it's not realistic what I'm asking for because what it's doing is creating an executable that you'll be able to run at the end. This is like your package game that you can run, you can build for Rise next year in April, as an example, right? And it takes time. Like you can actually give this game with the entire folder over to somebody and you make a shortcut on the game and that's your game. Like you can make your own custom. There's many things you can do here we haven't covered so far, like make your custom icon and a bunch of other stuff that we haven't covered. And it literally will make your game so you can actually package your game up and ship it to somebody. You can put it on itch.io at this point and all that stuff. So you can see like this is the stuff that it's going through. And here's the thing to look at, okay? So it says cooked packages, 143 remain 864, total 1,007. That's what it's doing. So it's going through some things, one thing at a time, right? So cooked packages 827, cooked packages 975, remaining 32. This might take a long time for you. It really depends on how this goes. And it'll get to the point where, right, those cooked packages are done, right? So it'll start compiling stuff, but it'll take time for all the stuff. Questions before we end for the day, because I wanted to really go through this with you. Again, you can come on the mic if you want to talk to me on the mic as well. You are being recorded, but if you have a question. So let's just go back to, I'll let this thing do its job. I'll come back to this. So what it's going to produce for you afterwards is this executable. I want you to run it. Like double click here and then run this file, right? The first build will run in complete full screen mode. Like if you actually double click this, you may not want to do this. And this is for you to do. What I want you to do, did I just package my project that quick? Come on, right? It did. And it probably did this because I've done this packaging stuff before in preparation for you guys. For you, it's going to take like minutes, right? But mine's done. So what I can do here is if I go to my build folder and if I double click inside Windows and double click the project, then we should see the build come up. Okay, so this is the build itself. Now here's things you want to see. You want to see this, okay? That's what you want to see, all right? And, you know, for the most part, I should be able to play the game and see all of its effects at this point. That's pretty good, okay? So that's where you're going to see the gameplay. If I press the escape key, it should quit the game. This is where you want to get to. And this is a beautiful thing, my friends. If you can get to this point where you can build the game, I mean, this is just like one step closer to showing this off to Connor, because he's your project, person. And later on in the second, in the semester 4, when you build it for Rise, this is what the game is going to look like. All right, so this is pretty good. But what I want to do is what it says here, which is I want to change the resolution and window size. And again, you can do this on your own. If you want to stick around for a few minutes, I'm going to continue to record because there's only one slide left. That's this one. and the next one is like, hey, what's going to happen next week? So how do I do this? So in the BP_FPS game mode, we stick around. So I'm going to open that up. So I go to BP_FPS game mode. Here it is. Then inside here, I'm going to close some of these off here. Here we go. I'm going to go to the event graph, and the event graph has this whole event begin play thing, right? And at the end, I'm going to add in another line of code, right? So again, just add another pin that's down here, and then down in here, I'm going to do this, get game user settings. Okay, now again, I'm doing this manually. But game user settings is something that we can use to create a menu, like how change the, things like your resolution and all that stuff. That's what this does. And then what I want to do here is I want to set the screen resolution, right? So set screen resolution. So that's one thing I want to do. And the resolution, notice that there is a make int point, right? So I can drag from here to where it says make int point. And then what I can do is I can set up the resolution that I want, 1024 by 768. You can call it something else. If you want a bigger resolution, I'm going to go 1024 by 768 for now, right? But you can change the resolution this way. Okay, there we go. So that's the first thing. I changed the resolution, but I also can change the full screen mode, to window to make sure it's windowed. So the way to do that is again to pull another one of these and change, so set full screen mode. Set full screen mode. Notice that that is another line, and I want to add another one of these because you're going to see a bunch of these, right? So these are all settings that you can do. Remember, like in a menu, you'd have like change this, change that, and then there's a button that says apply settings, right? Well, I'm going to show you how this works. So here is, instead of full screen, let's go to windowed. I want to do that. And then let's also change, notice this is apply settings. So again, it'll be the same thing. So from here, apply settings. So this would be, you could trigger this with your apply settings button. That's why these things are all separate, right? So you can have a bunch of different game user settings that you set up, right? And you can do that in a menu. I highly recommend that you create a menu for your game, right? Because this way, some computers will be able to run your game better than others. And you want to be able to allow the user to set up their computer so that your game is compatible, with theirs. So again, I'm going to just pull this down until we get here, and then do this. So this is really your in-class exercise 6. I'm giving it to you, right, as a gift, right? And here is, maybe you want to say something, change resolution in full screen mode. So change resolution. And full screen mode. If I can type mode, I can type anything right now. That's what happens when you're sick. All right. And that needs to be rebuilt. So once we've added this in, compile and save, This won't work really in the game, like in the editor. This is not an editor thing. I can run this thing and you're not going to see any changes, right? This is a build thing, okay? And when the thing gets built, you're going to see this, right? So that's important to understand. Like this is only for the build. So again, what I need to do is go File, Save All, right? And then we're going to go here and we're going to say something like git at dot one day. It's a lot. Notice that there's a lot of stuff going on here. And why? Because what this is doing is it's enumerating all the additional changes I just made because I made a build, right? Now it should not push the build, right? But it's going to move some stuff like the logs. So git commit -m, and we'll say something like changed resolution and full screen mode. Okay. And I want to push that one. All right. So it's going to be some stuff I'm pushing up to DevOps. It's not a lot, but it's some configuration files and some other stuff. Notice that the build is about 154, 187 megs. Right. I wonder if I'm pushing the whole build. That, you know what that means? If I'm pushing the entire build, there's no build folder that's being ignored. That's pretty damn big, right? What I mean by that in the that's funny that it did that. I didn't expect that because in the folder here under your in-class exercise 6, your gitignore file, let's double click on that. Your gitignore file, it has all this, but unfortunately it's not ignoring your build folder. So right now I've pushed the build folder, I'm pretty positive, up to your repo. It's not a terrible thing, but I mean, your build folder can be quite large. So like this is like your final build. So if I go back to, repos, and if I refresh, you can see all the commits I've done in a second. These are all the commits I did today. And then here you can see that I got a build folder now, right? So I didn't expect this, but it's actually here. So this is actually my build. I definitely don't want to do this. So what you'd want to do is add a line to your gitignore so that it ignores the build or builds folder, right? So I didn't do that this time. I'm so sorry. All right, so back to my project. We need to rebuild because if I want to see this thing working, right, then we need to rebuild the project. So again, File, Save All. I've done that already, right? And what I want to do here is I want to go to Platforms, and I want to go to Windows, Package Project, and it's going to select the same folder. I'm going to click Select Folder, and then it's going to rebuild the project with all my changes. Now, there's not a lot to rebuild, so this should be fairly quick because it does an incremental build. It doesn't build from scratch, right? So if you don't have to redo any shaders or anything like that, this shouldn't, and I say that word in a nice way, shouldn't, with quotation, take so long. It shouldn't take so long at all. All right, but let's see what happens. Questions around this stuff. I know this is a lot for today, but like I said, I covered most of it for you. Next week, when we get in, please do not be late. I'll send off a note to that effect. Please be on time when it comes to your test. Again, if you're late more than 20 minutes, you will not be allowed to write the test, and that would be a bad outcome. Any other questions before we move on? You guys are really quiet today. But then again, we're remote. And you can see I'm sparking out here because, my machine is taking all of its power and bringing it all to bear so that we can, package the project and be done with it. And there it is, it's done, right? So that's really not a great representation of what you're going to go through when you try and build this for the first time. So I'm going to go back to the build folder and now double click onto it, and we'll see that it's definitely, if it was full screen before, it's not full screen now, okay? And it's definitely 1024 by 768, okay? It's ready to go. It's ready to ship, right? So you should be able to play the game and hear all the sound effects and see all the special effects and stuff like that, and everything should be as normal. Okay, all the stuff that you saw in the editor should work now in the game, right? And it shouldn't be something that is different than what you saw or what you expect. Okay. That's it for me to get today, guys. Good luck studying. I recommend if you've had trouble before, especially last week when you were going through it, and you had trouble figuring out the nodes and all that kind of stuff. Please practice. I think it's going to be speed that's going to be your enemy next week more than anything else. So if you're having trouble with this kind of stuff, please do that. Please go through the examples, redo some of the in-class exercises again if you really want to, if you have the time. And this way you get a much more positive result next week compared to to what you had last week when how long it took. Okay, and that's it for me. Any questions before we go?